Thank you, Mehekka, for joining us today in Spotlight Me Stree. For Spotlight Me Stree, my vision is to highlight the success stories and resilience stories of women all over the world. And with this, I want to inspire more women to come and join the industry. I read about you and I was inspired. So please tell me more about your journey and what inspired you to join in the fintech industry. What are the challenges that you see in this industry?
So great. I started my career 8 years back, and I started my career in financial services. Obviously, completed my MBA with my specialization in finance. I was pretty clear that I wanted to make a career in finance, and then it has evolved, obviously, because financial services has also evolved. It has evolved because there's a lot more technology which has come in and which has aided the growth of the entire financial services space, and that's what led to the entire fintech industry growing. And if you look at the growth of the fintech industry, it's essentially over the last decade that there has been a significant growth which has happened in that industry. So what excites one about fintech is that there is always an innovation, possibility of collaboration, and a possibility of disruption, right? If you look at technology as a space, it's disrupting most of the spaces that you have today, and not just financial services, but financial services is the backbone for the economy. So every aspect of business that you might have, finance becomes the key. And that's where technology plus finance coming together to solve is something that excited me a lot. And that's when I joined IFL in this fintech role. And then IFL as an organization has been at the forefront of technology. When we started the gold loan business, we were amongst the very first companies to adopt technology where our branches are completely digitized in terms of servicing our customers. And again, that has evolved. So we were working with a lot of fintechs since the very beginning. We said that if there are fintechs that we already work with, why not support them with capital? That's when we launched the IFL Fintech Fund, which focuses on investing in fintech startups. And that's where the journey started.
Wow, amazing, amazing. So tell me, I have read about you and you have achieved great lengths in just in the period of 8 years. Please tell me, So what is your role as a fund manager of this 200 CR fund?
So, okay, very interesting and an exciting role, but typically what you expect out of a fund manager is that there are funds that you have, you identify the right investment and then you invest it. Okay. But what is unique about the IFL Fintech Fund is that we're looking to invest in startups which are at an early stages, and they are actually developing a product market fit, to say that they're trying to solve a certain problem within the fintech ecosystem. And that's when what we are doing from IFL Fintech Fund is identifying these startups which are trying to solve certain niche problem areas. So when we launched the IFL Fintech Fund, we were amongst, you could say, very few large institutions giving support in terms of early stage investing, right? So that's unique. What differentiates us is that we have an ecosystem where we would want to partner and collaborate with these fintechs as well. Okay. So that there is collaboration, there's understanding on the product, and there is a product development that can happen for the startup as well, which is what we do. So we look at investing in early stage startups. My role is to essentially identify these startups which can be a fit across the IFL ecosystem. And if there is a fit, is the company right from an investment standpoint? See, there are two things to this. There could be a fit in terms of problem they are solving, right, but it might not be a scalable business model for you to take an investment call and say, look, this is the company that you would want to invest in. So from the companies that we partner with, there are certain companies that we pick and choose to say, this is the one that we would want to invest in as well. Okay. And what goes behind this investment decision, right, something that goes behind this investment decision is that we see who the founders are, right? So founders are the most critical aspect to a business, specifically at an early stage. So if the opportunity is right, the segment is right, the industry is right, and the founder is right, we want to make an investment in that company.
Right. So tell me, what is IIFL Open and IIFL Disrupt?
So these are two different initiatives. I have been working on both the initiatives. That's the reason you picked it up. But IFL Disrupt is our initiative where we are looking at fintechs that we can invest in, collaborate with, and offer mentoring to. As an extension of IFL Disrupt, the fund was launched to basically invest in startups and fill the gap from a funding standpoint, while collaboration was always there. So we have a website of IFL Disrupt where the startups can reach out to us, an early stage startup wanting to actually see if and wants to test out the product at scale. Can actually come in and visit the website, send in the link, and then we have the team reaching out to understand what the proposition is. So that's IFL Disrupt. IFL Open is basically IFL Finance's joint venture with Open Financial Technology, which is basically a tech company and a neobank. Okay. But what IFL Open is going to be all about is again a neobank. It's an IFL's entry into the neobanking space through a joint venture with Open Financial Technologies. And what we're trying to do here is build a neobank for micro and small medium enterprises. So India doesn't has a neobank which supports the smaller segments because it's a very difficult segment to service from a credit need standpoint as well as from a reach standpoint. Right. You will need some kind of a physical touch point to address this audience, which is what IFL has, right? As IFL Finance today, we have reached across 3,000 branches, and these 3,000 branches are what we wish to use when these customers relate to the neobank, right? Because you have a physical presence, you feel far more comfortable to put your money or transact your money with this neobank. And that's the thought process of setting up IFL Open as a joint venture. And yeah, we look to have a neobanking venture in that.
So just for basic understanding, can you tell me what is a neobank in a simple language?
Very simple, neo plus bank, right? So not everyone can be a bank. Fintechs cannot be a bank because for becoming a bank, you need a banking license, right? So a banking license is needed, which a financial or just a fintech cannot make. It's not very easy license to get. So what are neobanks doing? Neobanks are essentially fintechs which are creating the front end, whereas at the back end what you have is a bank, which is why you call it neobank, which means a new age platform which gives you banking services. That's what is a neobank. At the back end, you will always have a traditional bank. So even if you look at neobanks like Jupiter and Fi, they have either a federal bank or a SBM bank at the back end where you are basically providing the banking services. But how are you differentiated? And this is true globally. How do you differentiate yourself is what is the kind of platform that you offer to the user who's actually using it. So, today's generation like us, you like to go to a bank. Have you visited a bank branch?
Not really,
right? And if I talk about the app that you would be using for banking, is it the best interface that you have?
Not really. It's very frustrating.
So if someone comes and tells you, look, your money will lie with HDFC Bank, but I'll give you a superb interface where everything that you want to do, whether it's a transaction, whether it's your card swipe, happens at a click of a button and a very good interface, you would want to start using it, right? This is what has happened globally. The young generations are more keen on using a neobank than using a traditional bank.
Yeah.
Your money is with the traditional bank. And that's how the entire neobanking space has evolved over years, right? And if you talk about India, then the neobanking, the usage of neobanking has been growing. But again, like every segment, there are two kinds of customers possible. In the neobank also, there are two kinds of neobank. One is a consumer neobank and one is a MSME neobank or an SME neobank. The difference is a consumer neobank would service people like you and me who are consumers, who are probably salaried, self-employed, but individuals. And the kind of features that I would want to offer you would be a savings account and everything related to your spends and the day-to-day life. and another is a SME neobank or an MSME neobank, which will target the businesses. So in India, you have a lot of consumer neobanks, but you do not have as many MSME neobanks. So Open itself is one of the neobanks which is focusing on SME, but you don't have neobanks focusing on the smaller enterprises, and not as many in the SME domain neobanks have picked up in India, whereas globally you have a lot of examples where the business also needs to have neobanks. So that's what a neobank is, and what is the differentiation between
any
the
other
two.
neobanks that we might know of?
A lot of, so in India, you have Jupiter,
right?
Fi.
So those are under the neobank, right?
Correct. You have Freo.
Okay.
All of these are neobanks in India.
Speaking about your fund, right, Disrupt, right? Can you tell me a little bit about the portfolio companies that you have? I read about Legality.
Yeah.
You can start from that. I mean, they got huge amount of funding from you guys being an early stage startup. So
we have now invested in close to 12 companies. All of them have a product market fit that they have established, and this product market fit is doing well, right? We identified these early on, close to 1.5 years back, and if you look at the kind of growth that these companies have achieved, some of them, they've phenomenally grown in terms of the user base, in terms of the companies that they are working with. And since you talk about Legality, yes, it's one of our largest portfolio companies today. What they essentially do is offer an e-sign and then legal flow solution, right? And their core product is an e-signing solution that they are offering. They are the only player within the financial services space that is widely used when it comes to the digital signing process. So as the entire financial services industry digitized, so did the experience of signing an agreement. So whenever you're entering into a contract, taking a loan or executing a deed, opening an account, all of this needs you to fill an application form. And when you're trying to fill in an application form, you would want the customer to sign that form. Pre-era where these guys were not there, it used to be a physical signing that used to happen. They've digitized the complete flow, which is compliant and legally accepted flow. Today, they work with more than 1,000 financial institutions, giving them the same offering that they have, and it's growing. So you could think about it that we believe it could be the Adobe of India, right? The Adobe sign of India is what these guys could essentially become.
So this is currently only in India, or they're
just an India focused entity, and we typically look at investing in startups which are playing the India story, because our thought process is that India has far more opportunities for growth than globally. And we end up supporting companies which are playing on the Indian thesis. While they might expand into certain geographies which can give them additional revenue, but their core or predominant amount of their business is happening in India.
The majority should come from India, and then they are allowed to go out as well and
absolutely
work if required.
Yeah.
So I was really excited to read about the platform that you have launched in the credit space, the loan on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
So this is a pretty amazing thing. What were the challenges that you felt, during launching this or maybe implementing this as a platform?
So, again, this was something that we did as a part of our collaboration with one of the fintechs that then eventually got acquired by Pine Labs, but the fintech is called Setu. We developed this or co-created this with them. And the thought process when we were launching this was fairly simple, right? Everyone today is used to a conversational text message and hooked on to WhatsApp. And so is people in tier 2, tier 3 towns when they're actually conversing with someone. But the process of taking a loan, an unsecured business loan, is not very simple, even if it's a digital journey, right? We've simplified it on WhatsApp, where the end-to-end journey is on WhatsApp itself, where you want to click and just keep clicking, uploading documents on WhatsApp, and then you get an instant decisioning, and the disbursal essentially takes place within 24 to 48 hours of you submitting the documents through WhatsApp, and you keep getting the updates through WhatsApp. Now, what were some of the advantages of using WhatsApp? An easy interface that you give to the customer, which he's used to in his daily life, to do an application process, which is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
So, because the application process typically takes a long time, and it's more digital savvy if you're doing it yourself, you might not be as much digital savvy, but WhatsApp is something that everyone uses. So that was the thought process. There have been a lot of challenges in implementing the solution.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest challenge that we have faced when we were trying to implement this solution is to kind of say that the audience understands it and uploads the correct things. See, there are certain limitations in terms of the validations that you can do when the customer is trying to upload something on WhatsApp, right? To educate the user to get in the right document has been one of our challenges, because then you typically end up typing whatever you feel like on a bot, and
that's what I was thinking.
this bot might not understand what you're trying to type.
Yeah.
At times, the bot might not understand the language. So we have not been able to convert everything to a multilingual language, right? Because there is restriction in terms of what can be supported, what cannot be supported.
How many languages do we have?
So as of now, it's just in English.
English.
But since, on WhatsApp, if your settings is such that you're typing in Hindi, then obviously you can actually see that. But the point is, it's not multilingual as of today. So that are some of the challenges when it comes to implementing a solution, or actually more than implementing, getting adoption of a solution like this, right? And mostly in an unsecured business loan journey, there's typically some kind of assistance that people need.
Yeah.
Which after building the journey, we realized, okay, there might be an assistance which is needed. So we ended up doing a calling assistance for users who are dropping out. While the earlier idea was that we want to keep it completely a DIY solution, but at certain stages where intervention was needed, we've now started supporting it from the calling center.
So what is the team size right now for this initiative?
No, so it's not like we have, so there's a center level team that looks at all initiatives, and this initiative is a part of the complete other initiatives that we're looking at. So it's not that we can say that these many people were just created for working on this, but yeah, when we implement the solution, or when the development was happening in the solution, at that point of time we were a team of only 5 members. This included members from Setu as well as from our side that were working on it. So it was not that we needed a huge team from a development standpoint, but obviously from a scale up standpoint, you need intervention from multiple stakeholders.
I'm sure this is a big market, right? The loan on WhatsApp. So how much do you feel the percentage of market that you guys have currently penetrated with only English?
I think it's we've not even scratched the surface. There's evolvement. It needs to evolve. We need to see and further improve the adoption. So it's not even at the scratch. We've not even scratched the surface, quite honestly.
But obviously we are planning to.
Yeah.
Great. So speaking about the fund and how you are deeply working with your portfolio companies as well as your own initiatives coming up. Tell me more about, as a fund manager, how do you see the pitch decks coming in, and what are your thoughts in terms of shortlisting a particular business pitch deck that you receive?
I would say when someone's trying to send a pitch deck, what you essentially look at in a pitch deck, or what is very important in a pitch deck, is to clearly lay out what is the market opportunity, what is the potential you're targeting, and what is your uniqueness or a moat that you think you will be able to cater to that market, and what is a clear execution plan. Now these 3 things become very important when a pitch deck is coming to us. So if the pitch deck just says, look, this is an opportunity, this is our idea, no. You need to get into saying that, okay, this is the opportunity, this is how I plan to implement it,
okay,
this is where I aspire to be in the next 3-4 years, what my plan is, and how would I achieve that plan, and what is potentially the size that I can take from the market, right? From the market opportunity that I have. So that's essentially what you would want to, what gets you excited to read a pitch deck. After which, how would you want to select that, okay, this is the company that you would want to actually take to the next round, or hear what they're trying to build, is to understand, is the solution that they're pitching, is it more theoretical, or there is a specific business use case and a business challenge that they have which they're trying to resolve.
Okay.
So that's what we look at. If there is actually a business use case and that is a real pain point which is unsolved for the industry, then we would want to definitely hear that startup say, what is the kind of solution that you have to this kind of a problem statement. So again, problem statement and the solution becomes very, very important when you're trying to put it across in the pitch deck.
But it is so subjective, Mehekka. In my experience of last 3 years in this industry, right, I've met so many innovators, so many startups and women-led startups for that matter. But the kind of problem and solution situation when it comes, at that moment, it's pretty subjective for you to identify. So as an individual, how do you take those objective calls of, either shortlisting or rejecting a particular?
So it's quite honestly, it's not subjective. The solution can be subjective, but the quantum of benefit that the solution can have is always objective. Right?
Okay.
So I'll give you an example. Let's say, so we invested in a startup called Trust Checker, which was a fraud solution. Clear.
Okay.
All they were doing was that they were giving you on a particular mobile number what is the possibility that the person is a fraud. Right?
Okay.
Basically, the mobile number, email ID, and they would scrap through all the various open sources which are available to arrive at a score. Now, is this score needed? Yes. Is it a simple solution? Yes. What is the possible scalability of the solution? Right. That's the next question that comes to the mind. So if you look at the scalability of this solution for all companies which are in digital lending today, you need a solution to say, and at the top, right, when the customer is just coming in, whether it's actually a fraud or not.
Right.
So I can say very easily over the last 2 years, specifically post-COVID, the digital frauds have gone up 2 folds.
Really?
2 folds. And even if you have a solution which caters to one part of that problem, you have enough and more market space to say that, look, this is a problem that I'm trying to solve. And this is the quantum that you can solve for. Even if it's a 2% problem that you're trying to solve, I'm saying that, frauds have increased 2x.
Yeah.
And losses on account of frauds have also gone up, let's say, 20-30%. Because, okay, some of your existing fraud engines will weed out the frauds and some newer ones you will not be able to. So that's the potential that comes in. So there is always going to be some objectivity to the solution. What is subjective is, will the solution work?
Yeah.
And that's the reason we don't invest in startup which just come at an idea stage to us.
Okay.
We would look at a product market fit where you have an MVP and that MVP is established where you've tested it with at least one organization. Even if it's a very first check coming in as a client, it's tested. I could also be the first customer testing it out.
Yeah.
But if I'm the first customer testing, I would want to wait and test it out. Is it actually solving the problem?
Yes.
And if you're sure it is solving the problem, then taking an objective call on the opportunity is very, very simple.
Okay. Got it. Really great points. I think I also would learn a little bit of objective parameters that you could share with me. Also, tell me, if I want to apply as a startup, right? So it is purely fintech.
It's purely fintech.
Fintech.
Financial services and companies which have a client base which is more oriented to financial services, which means you could be a tech service provider or you could be a data provider, but your major clients are financial services or you have use case in financial services. So you would not say that these are pure fintechs because they're not just financial or doing it, but they are service or offering it to a financial institution. So for example, we invested in a company called Easy Rewards. It's a platform, it's a loyalty platform. Today, RBL's loyalty runs on its platform, Bajaj's loyalty and referral program, Kotak's referral program. They are actually the SaaS providers, or you can say the technical term here is LPaaS, the loyalty platform as a service provider. We've invested in that startup. Now, it's a tech startup. We would not purely say fintech, but most of their customers are in the financial services domain. So 70 to 80% of their revenue is coming from financial services.
Okay, so their customer belong from that
Correct.
background.
And the solution, so the point is not just customer. That means your solution is something which can solve pain points in the financial services industry.
Wow.
That's what we're looking at.
Wow. And on the documentation side, right? For example, I want to apply for your funds in your platform. So what are the kind of documentation you guys look at, and do you have any particular parameters in that sense?
So it starts with a pitch deck, first submission. Second submission is of a business plan, which is basically an Excel-based determination of where you want to be. Now, once this is done, and then we finalize that, okay, we would want to go ahead and we've done all our research, we've concluded that, okay, this is a good company to support. Then actually there's a due diligence process which happens. Now, typically a due diligence process lasts a little longer because what happens in a due diligence process is every document of the company is checked. So you undertake two kinds of due diligences. One is a legal due diligence, and another is a financial due diligence. In a legal due diligence, you end up checking all the contracts that the company would have made, if there's any past investment that would have happened when the share capital got subscribed, all the documentation, all the filings that they would have made to MCA, all of that gets checked. And in a financial due diligence, you end up checking all the statements. So from the ledger entries to the sales invoices to seeing whether the reconciliation is correct to looking at the tally records, all of this becomes a part of financial due diligence. Only when the due diligence is completed successfully, you would end up giving the final sign-off. So basically, at the first stage, you would have a term sheet which gets signed. Okay. At the next stage, you would have a final documentation which is typically called as a shareholders agreement and a share subscription agreement that gets signed.
Wow. But is it that easy to get a term sheet?
No.
Because I would tell you honestly, in the last 3 years, I've not seen many of them.
No, it's not very easy to get a term sheet, obviously. So I can say if there are 50 startups that would pitch to us, probably just 2 of them end up, not even 2, 1 of them end up getting a term sheet. So.
And how many of them would be women, you would say?
Oh, how many of them would be women? So if you talk about the number pitching to us, that will be larger.
Yeah.
The number where eventually they will get up funding, it's decent. It's about 15-20% as of today, or might be less than that. Yeah. So what happens is at times they are co-founders. Yeah. But definitely there are less number of women as fintech entrepreneurs compared to obviously the number of men driving it. It's very less. But yeah, you will typically see them as co-founders. So you can say at least 2 out of all the investments that we have done have a woman co-founder as well.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Actually, not 2, 3. 3 of them have a woman co-founder, yeah.
That's good to know. Out of 12, it's a good number.
Yeah.
Great. So, tell me more about how to inspire, right? You belonging from this industry, we obviously understand it is a very underrepresented area where women are not really there. So, what are your suggestions or tips for that matter to share with the women out there worldwide? Be it aspiring, be it enthusiasts, and be it women-led founders. What are your thoughts and in terms of inspiring these women to come out and to share their ideas with us?
I think women have tremendous potential, but they typically, so from a mindset standpoint, they typically don't want to take as much risk, right? So from that mindset, the capabilities to take risk was far lesser. But what we have seen now is that, with the way things have been evolving, women have been taking up challenging roles. And starting up again, there are enough and more startups in India today that have women, right? And they have successfully scaled up their startups. You can look at the sugar founder, right? And you can say an icon for women kind of scaling it up. So I don't think that women are not doing it. I think that to see them eventually in a larger number, it is an evolution from where we were 10 years back to where we are today. There is a tremendous amount of difference that has come in, and there's going to be more which will come in. What would inspire is that you come out and take that responsibility and take that risk, right? There are just 2 things out there. You have to take a responsibility and you should be willing to take a risk. Typically, women are risk averse, more risk averse than men are. But then, it's not that.
But that it works both ways. Like it is sometimes good also to be that way.
No, so for certain roles, definitely it's good to be that way, right? So if you talk about fund management, one of the reasons why women would do better is because they would take a more balanced decision. That's one of the inherent qualities which helps
Objective
them.
decision.
Yeah, that kind of helps. It's not that men don't take it. It's just a inherent nature, right? Most of the men would also obviously objectively take a decision, but from a woman's standpoint, it's more
comes
natural.
Right. And being a woman, right, you would take a lot of decisions around here. And what would you say? Your point of view, the difference of point of view between you and your male counterparts, right? So, what would you say is the difference, and what would you say is a strength because you're a woman, and maybe a weakness?
So I think from a strength standpoint, it is essentially that, we inherently, in terms of responsibility, you don't shy away from taking it, right? So
I agree.
And since decades, a lot of heavy lifting responsibility is something that comes very naturally to women. So you will not shy away from taking responsibility or taking the onus.
Yeah.
Okay, so responsibility comes with you taking up and saying, okay, I did this, right?
Yeah,
So you have to be responsible for it. That is something which comes to a woman very naturally. That's one strength, right? And from a weakness standpoint, I think everyone has weakness. So it's very difficult to say between a man and a woman because both inherently have, and it's more individualistic in nature than gender oriented in nature, right?
Yeah.
Weaknesses are more to a person, specific to a person, and not specific to a gender. It will be like, everyone has, and to a lot of extent this is true for strength also, right? Because strength is also an individual factor. While overall you can say, like I said, right, you can still distinguish and say, okay, women have been taking responsibility, so there's a mindset towards that. But strength and weakness per se, these words are more individual in nature, not per se gender specific.
Very nicely put. I think this is a very interesting insight. And also tell me, is there any experience or any example that you can give in your own career where you have felt like, okay, because I'm a woman, I was not able to do that, or I was able to do that because I had those capabilities, maybe some other may not have done that.
So, I mean, I have heard a lot of stories of women facing certain challenges, but to be quite honest, touch wood, and I could say it's a blessing that in my career over the last 8 years, I have thankfully always been with bosses or people who I report to, who have been very, very supportive to give the responsibility, to trust, to give you the decision-making authority. And this has been true across my career span, across the 3 entities that I have worked with. That I have not faced the challenge saying only because I am a woman, I did not get to play a particular role, or I did not get to do a particular thing. But I have heard stories of women facing that challenges. But over time, obviously, the workplaces have also become more diversified. So I can talk for myself, and thankfully, the organization that I am in and the organization that I have worked with, I have not faced. And not just from an organization standpoint, this is also true from a schooling to a college to across the standpoint, that we've not seen that kind of distinction. I don't even remember a childhood instance of saying only because I was a girl or a woman, I was not allowed to do certain things, whether it was studies or whether taking over. So I might not be the best person to kind of answer
Definitely,
that.
but what would you suggest to people experiencing otherwise, right? What are the few things that someone can either adapt or learn, or maybe add those skills to their portfolio where they can actually avoid such situations?
So I think how you look at a glass is your choice, right? Whether a glass is half full or half empty is a choice that you always make. Well, if you come across certain situations where you are restricted, you always have an opportunity to say move on and look at a role or look at a place where you would be given an equal opportunity. So the society is no more a society where everywhere you will get similar kind of treatment, right? It has evolved. and there are enough and more number of places where you will be respected and challenged in terms of your career. That's why even if you look at personalities, there are a lot many women personalities who build great businesses,
Absolutely.
who've headed great businesses, right? So which means that it's just a mindset that you have to look at it from a standpoint, there's enough and more opportunity out there. Probably where I am stuck is a wrong place to be in. I don't need to be here. I need to move on and look for opportunities where I will be, equally respected. It's like, I saw this interesting short video, but it's like, not every place is meant for you, right? So there was a short
It's
video.
about time when you understand that, okay, this is for me.
And
or this is not.
how someone is looking at it. I saw a very interesting video where there was a old vehicle that a father gifted to her daughter and said, you know what, you can sell this and do whatever you want to do. So the first place where she went to was like a second-hand car seller. Said, look, I can just give 10,000 to this car. It's like a very old car, not. She came back and said, what will I do with 10,000? There's no point of selling it. Then the second place that she went into is because, the metal, and can I sell it to a scrap dealer? Like, scrap dealer, okay, I will give you 15,000 for this because there's enough and more scrap that I can. I just got 15,000. Again, something not worth. It's like, there's no point of selling it. And then her dad told her, okay, do one thing, go to a vintage showroom. Okay. She went to a vintage showroom to,
Showcase the car.
Showcase the car. And that vintage showroom, and since it was a very, very old car, that's how it's depicted. It's one of those vintage models.
The ambassadors kind.
Yeah, so one of those vintage models that every vintage showroom would want to have. It was a limited edition. That's how it is shown in that video. And then that showroom said, look, give us this car, and we are willing to give you like 10 lakh.
Wow.
Okay. So the value of something lies in who is looking at that value, from what lenses the value is being looked at, right? And it's not where you are. You probably went to a wrong person, you probably went to a wrong place where the thing was not appreciated because they had a certain lens of seeing it. But if you are in a place where they know your true worth, then you are at the right place, right? So you choose where you have to be to say, this is where I am appreciated, or this is where, my capabilities are enhanced, because it's the way someone is looking at it that determines. Every side has two parts to it, right?
Correct.
Which side you choose, which side you see, totally gets determined by yourself.
Definitely. Mehekka, I have met so many investors, and I pick their brain every time in terms of what do you look for in a founder of a startup or a company?
Okay, an interesting question, I must say. But what we essentially look for is the patience and willingness. So what happens is you have an idea. Can you stick around to that idea for longer? And you are willing to stick and stay with that idea to actually scale it, because what happens is at times the sales cycles are longer, at times the product development cycles are longer, and you just need to continue to have the faith that, look, this was an idea I started with and this is where I can scale. So that willingness to scale and that hard to say, okay, I would want to stick around, right? That's very, very important. And then obviously capabilities, that's no doubt that you want to look at it, whether the product that you're developing, are you from that background and experience that you can develop that product and deliver that product, right? So these are some things that that become very, very important when we're looking at entrepreneurs. And honesty. So it should not happen that there's X amount X being told to me, there's Y being told to another investor, there is X plan being submitted to me, Y being delivered to another.
How much of this would happen or does happen, you would say, as
very rarely it does, because most of these startup entrepreneurs are well aware that the entire ecosystem is connected, so and they won't do it deliberately. So it is not that it has happened with us. but it's just that, it talks about the integrity and the honesty level that you have as founder. See, when you are actually putting in money, you are trusting the person to run the company. And if there is no integrity and honesty out there, then it becomes very, very difficult to say, how do you trust someone with the capital that you're putting in? What if that information flow doesn't happen correctly and you've been reported something that, is not actually the performance of the company? You will never be able to track a company of that kind, right?
So tell me, post-investment, does it happen? Post-investment, so for example, now you've invested in a company and eventually a founder or a co-founder, turns in a different way. Then what does happen?
So typically it'll not. So see, so your core values don't change because you've got funding, right?
Okay.
What can potentially change after the investment has come is some amount of attitude in terms of information sharing. That's the only risk you're carrying. Your core values don't typically end up changing, right? If you are an honest person by heart, the money is not going to change that honesty aspect of it, right? So that is not something that we've experienced, or actually we've seen the companies, and if you look at the companies that have largely evolved also, you don't typically see this kind of challenge. But yeah, one kind of challenge that you can face is the information, right? So sharing of information, and which is why it's something which you mandatorily solve for in the clauses when you're actually doing the final documentation. This is something that you take as a right as an investor, and precisely why it is taken, and why certain matters you put in an AVM and say, look, you need my approval for decisions like these. So that, if any change on this front happens, they're actually by law mandated that before taking such a decision or doing any of these activities, they're bound to come to the investor, because there's substantial amount of money that the investor has also put into the business.
So the reporting part of it.
Yeah, reporting and compliance.
So being a fund manager, Mehekka, I would understand you must receive plethora of pitch decks in your email.
Absolutely.
So how do you manage your day, and what does your typical day look like as a fund manager?
So okay, it's going to be very difficult to answer, because there's no set routine that you essentially have. But the first thing that you would want to do in the morning is to check out all the emailers that you would have got. Quickly glance through the deck and the kind of information available, because you need to be on top of what is the kind of fintech developments which are happening, right? So that's the first thing that you will want to read on, that what has happened, and look at certain newsletters get updated. The next thing is you kind of iron out all the mailers or cold mailers which have come in terms of tech, and quickly look if the idea is worth it. And if the idea is worth it, you say,
you personally do that, or you delegate it?
So if the idea is worth it, it gets, it goes to the team that, look, this is an emailer which has come.
Otherwise, the first email is taken.
Yeah, it's looked at by me. But you actually need to look at, say, okay, this might make sense. Otherwise, then the team gets overloaded, right? If I just send it across, I think on some days I have close to 10-15 emailers coming for some startups. There's no point of actually saying, okay, there are some which are a clear no from one standpoint. There's some where you're not sure, right? Because you might not have an exposure, or it just looks interesting. Not necessarily you've read through the entire emailer, or you've gone through the entire pitch deck, but broadly you have a sense that this could could make some sense. So that goes to the team, and then yes, obviously there's a good team to to say, okay, these are ones that we will filter out for the next round. So there's one level of go through that they have an understanding of how the
coming back to your day. So after the emailers, what do you do?
So once that is done, then the next aspect of it is to look at the existing pipelines that we have, and what are the pending deliverables in that to close the transaction. And then some amount of time gets into, since I'm also looking at the IFL Open ventures, and some part of the day goes towards looking at how the scale up there is happening, what needs to be done, and all of that.
Wow. So how do you balance, this life, your work life and your personal life?
So I would say that when you enjoy your work, you don't have to look at the time that you're spending it, right? Because work in itself is not stress or work, but it's make you excited.
Work more.
So as I'm concerned, I really enjoy what I'm doing. So the number of hours don't matter, and typically weekends are something that is kept free, so that you get enough amount of time for personal time, and actually some break from work. But Monday to Friday is full of action, and that's an action that you like as well.
So what is your most favorite part of the day, right? Be it a work or a personal situation?
Early morning.
Early morning.
Early morning read through.
Wow, you're a morning person.
Yeah. So I think the best part that I like in the whole day is the morning time that I get to do yoga and exercise. So I do that every day, every morning. So that's one aspect of it. And the second aspect of it is the morning time, 30 minutes, 35 minutes that you get to read, because at that point of time you don't have too many calls coming in, so you have a free space to like read on what is happening. So these are two things.
Do you read books?
No, not as much. I'm not an avid reader. I just read in the morning for about 25-30 minutes, essentially across the Fintech newsletter, because that's an area of interest for me. But I'm not an avid book reader. I'm trying to develop that habit too.
Sure. So I would like to see, you have been in this industry since a long time. What are, please name 2 of your favorite Fintech disruptors or innovators that you like, and if you get a chance to have dinner with them, what would you discuss with these 2 people?
Okay, I think the first one is Nandan Nilekani.
Okay.
Right, because he is the person who is the creator of what you call as India Stack, which has become the backbone for the entire Fintech evolution to take place, right? So he's the one who built UIDI, made the foundation for India Stack. He's the person who is now behind OK and Account Aggregator, which are 2 Fintech trends which are emerging, and a lot of incremental growth is going to come from this, right? So from an ideation standpoint to a visionary to say what can potentially be in the next 10 years that I start building from now is something that he's done really, really well. And if I get an opportunity of having a dinner with him, I would want to understand from him, that for some next initiatives that he will be working on with Account Aggregator already being set out there, and okay, and also is just evolving. So what is the next thing that
what is the next thing that he will innovate?
Yeah, so the next that will probably play out 5-6 years from now. But what is in his mind that
as a visionary, what does he see
correct
in the future?
So
great.
So that's one person, and another person is actually Tim Cook. You would not want to call him. So traditionally, he would not be known as a fintech person, but quite honestly, if you look at it, Apple probably has done the biggest fintech innovations, or in terms of the ecosystem that they have created. They have all possible financial services offering for their customers, right? So they have evolved. While you might not call them the biggest fintech, but in terms of the offerings that they have evolved into fintech. So that's something, and what I would want to know from him, that being a product company, a mobile phone product company, how has Apple evolved into the financial services space? So that evolution is something that I would want to understand from him.
Wow, that's great. I mean, 2 amazing people. Please invite me for the dinner if possible.
Absolutely.
Also, so Mehekka, please tell me, do you have any success mantra that you follow, as an individual, and or do you like to share it with the public out there to inspire them with your success mantra?
So I think there's no short success mantra, and be honest about it. There's one thing, okay, that you work hard and you work dedicatedly.
Yeah.
And that automatically leads to success. There is no one way of saying that this will lead to success, this will lead to failure. If you put your mind on something which you truly believe in, I think it is bound to happen, right? I since my childhood days, I remember this dialogue of Shah Rukh Khan, right? So he said this in one of the films, right? That जो चीज़ तुम पूरी शिद्दत से चाहो, सारी कायनात तुम्हें उससे मिलाने की साजिश में लग जाती है. And I think which is true for success also. So if you put your mind on something which you really believe that can be done, might take some time, but you will still have that done. So it's basically your hard work that essentially
gives you the results.
That gives you the result. Hard work plus a positive thought process. Obviously, you don't have to lose heart very easily. So yeah, these are two things.
It's not easy out there.
Yeah.
True. And any future plans that you might have for yourself as well as for the fund, for that matter?
So I think we would be looking at from a fund standpoint, we're looking to make some more good investments. We are looking to exit some investments successfully. So we want a unicorn in our portfolio while it's early stages. So we would want a unicorn in our portfolio. And depending upon how it pans out, obviously we would be doing a series of this fund. Not immediately, but yeah, sometime soon. So.
And what are few things that you would say personally that you are looking out for in the next, or where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years?
I think this is one question which looks like an interview question.
But it's actually not, because I really want to inspire people, because see, you have achieved so good and I really admire you for that. I've learned a lot from you today. But I really want to understand, where would you go, after this, where would you want to go?
So I think where do I see myself 5 years down the line is essentially helping companies build and
On
innovate.
ground?
Yeah, and innovate, right? So and that's why it's more diversified. So you can say helping companies grow and innovate, whether it's giving them access to capital, giving them product ideas, or working on the product ideas themselves, right? But this is the domain that I have in mind. Okay, the thought process is you would want to be a part of growth of a business, right?
Right.
Either as an investor.
That is more exciting, I feel.
Yeah.
Like working for the growth rather than the funding part of it, is it?
It's twofold, right? So what happens is, if you are funding a startup, you're automatically involved in the growth part of it, while you might not be operationally involved. But what it does, it just gives you a sense of who all are there and what could that potential startup do, right? And then there is a lot of excitement on working on the growth part of it also, because if you're operationally involved, there's a lot more learning that you have in terms of seeing how it is scaled, right? And it's a very difficult choice to make between the two, that what would you enjoy more. It's just
But I feel then you will not be part of 12 companies, because currently, looking at a fund manager, I am assuming you will be engaged with all the 12 companies that you have invested in.
Correct.
But as an operational person,
you will be involved in a single company.
In a single company.
Correct.
So that's the sacrifice I feel that you will have to.
That's always there, right? Every role will have some kind of sacrifice that you'll have to make.
Right, great. I just had one question, but do you have like an angel investment?
No.
Your personal favorite sectors apart from fintech?
Right now, fintech. So if you ask
Only
me that,
fintech?
Yeah.
Don't you think it's a little bit biased?
It is, but because I'm working in that segment, I don't.
So no other preferences in terms of sectors or
FMCG and fintech.
FMCG.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
So are you a vegetarian or a non-vegetarian?
Vegetarian.
Great. I think amazing. Thank you so much, Mehekka, for your time, and really
My
appreciate your time, and thank you for joining me today, sharing amazing insights with us. I'm sure the audience will love it and will get the inspiration that is required.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.